He's either lying or he's a complete idiot. You can pick whichever one you want when he says the city would have burned down without the National Guard being there, which is complete crap.
If we weren't there, if we didn't bring in the National Guard and the Marines, you would probably have a city that was burning to the ground. In fact, the police chief said so much. If you look at what his statements were, he said, we're very lucky to have had them.
Is that how you would characterize your statements, sir?
No, we were not in a position to request the National Guard. We're nowhere near a level where we would be reaching out to the governor for National Guard at this stage. And my hope is that things are going in the right direction now and that we wouldn't have had to have done that.
Well, another day, more ICE raids, more demonstrations. We're getting more mixed messages from local leaders about the severity of the demonstrations or so-called riots in Los Angeles. But we do know that one person's lying.
If we didn't go, Los Angeles right now would be on fire. It would be a disaster. And we stopped it. And last night was very good. Nobody showed up. You know why they didn't show up? Because we were there.
People absolutely did show up. It's just that they showed up to peacefully demonstrate and protest. However, the demonstrations are spreading throughout Los Angeles County. Let me give you the details as we know them. The Los Angeles Police Department said in a statement that over 80 people were arrested in connection with Wednesday's protests. The majority were charged with failure to disperse. Additionally, there were 7 arrests for curfew violation, 2 for assault with a deadly weapon. What are you guys doing? Like assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, and 1 for resisting a police officer. Now, LAPD made nearly 400 arrests and detentions since Saturday in connection with immigration protests, protests against the ICE raids that have been taking place. And we did have some TYT folks on the ground at the LA protests to speak to people, to speak to some of the demonstrators to kind of get a sense of what they've experienced. Let's take a look.
I live just right down the street and I've been hearing so much chaos for the past few nights. I wanted to see if it was truly like a riot out here or what, but it looks like people are pretty peaceful. And it seems like kind of most of the tension is coming from the scrimmage line that's been created. Downtown's kind of been a ghost town, minus these little pockets of protest. The most crazy thing is this sound of helicopters that now seems like a new normal down here, but it really has not been a war zone, at least not from what I've seen. The only ruckus is really the police, like last night till 6 a.m., just sirens.
I would say there's 1 or 2% bad apples and 98% are here to protest.
And I think it's a good thing when the bad apples do get arrested, because I don't want them to take away from the message that's being sent by the demonstrators. I will say this, when Karen Bass implemented a curfew specifically in downtown LA, at first it was 1 square mile, but I believe she expanded it to like 5 or 6 square miles of downtown Los Angeles. That definitely helped, right? But there are definitely examples of police carrying out excessive force against people who are doing absolutely nothing wrong that I want to get to in just a minute. And of course, you should all be aware that these demonstrations have spread all across the country. It's not just Los Angeles anymore. We're going to get to that in a bit as well. But first, I want to bring you in, Waz, and kind of get your take on how things have developed so far.
It's going about as I expected. Honestly, when we came up here, I guess it was like 2 days ago now. And, Donald Trump is talking about the Marines and the National Guard, and they're trying to evoke images of 2020 with a lot of the BLM uprisings and stuff that happened here in LA and all over the country, quite frankly. But it just hasn't risen to that level. And it just becomes more and more obvious by the day that Donald Trump's whole point with all of this was spectacle. This isn't like they're not carrying out a mission where they're, arresting and detaining all of these quote unquote so-called illegal immigrants and taking them to deportation centers. Like the point is the spectacle. Like there's talking about sending these people down to like safeguard the ICE missions or whatever. It's nonsense. The point is this: to attract a bunch of news media, to show people being upset on TV, and news and internet, and to get people against the protesters, and by extension against, undocumented people, asylum seekers, et cetera, et cetera. And so they're getting what they want. I just don't think they're gonna get a win out of this.
They're not. In fact, the latest Quinnipiac poll shows that for the first time in his second term, Trump is actually losing favorability in the one area where he was enjoying favorability, and that's his immigration policies. So when you start engaging in actions that lead to unrest across the country, Americans aren't gonna like it, obviously. They're not gonna enjoy seeing military on their streets. And they're not going to enjoy seeing people who, yes, might be undocumented, but they're individuals who are harmless, who contribute to society. They're gardeners, day laborers at Home Depot parking lots waiting for work. Like these are not the people that Americans, even those who are concerned about undocumented immigration, wanted the Trump administration to target. Yes, there is a contingent of the Trump base that wants all these people deported. They want mass deportations. But most Americans, and especially independent voters, seem to be questioning whether they're really supportive of what Trump is doing here. Now, with that in mind, our team did see officers on foot and on horseback firing flashbangs and foam bullets at the crowds. They also captured this moment where a cop seemingly pushed over a woman for no good reason. Let's take a look at that.
No one's being arrested. You don't need to be arrested.
So that woman that was just pushed to the ground was walking on a sidewalk, attempting to get back to her apartment. I'm sorry, that was a different woman. So there was another woman, a woman simply walking on a sidewalk, attempting to get back to her apartment, was shot by police with a rubber bullet. And today, despite the fact that state leaders and now the LAPD chief are saying that the National Guard was not necessary, Trump's administration doesn't care and is proceeding with their plans to put even more troops on the streets. So roughly 700 Marines are expected to join 2,100 National Guard troops. 2,000 additional Guard troops are also set to begin training on Thursday afternoon. What a waste of their time. What a waste of our money. And it's not just Cali liberals, by the way, condemning Trump for deploying troops in an American city, no less. A growing number of military veterans and service officers have spoken out against it as well, calling it an abuse of power that puts soldiers in danger. So retired Major General Paul Eaton, who led the operation to train Iraqi troops during the US invasion of Iraq, said that Trump's order was a display of presidential hubris and a misuse of executive power. Another retired Major General by the name of Randy Manner weighed in and said in a statement to Fox News on Sunday, the president's federal deployment of the National Guard over the official wishes of a governor is bad for all Americans concerned about freedom of speech and states' rights, something that the right used to pretend to care about. Now, Rachel Hicks, who served in the Tennessee and Nevada Guard for 11 years, also argues that this is not how the National Guard should be used, ever. None of these soldiers are trained for riots, so you're putting both parties in a very unsafe and potentially fatal situation or situations. So that's what we're dealing with here, Waz. The deployment of military to a US city is only meant to inflame the situation. And those who are denying it are like living in La La Land. Well, totally delusional.
Well, we know what Trump is saying is he's either lying or he's a complete idiot. You can pick whichever one you want when he says the city would have burned down without the National Guard being there, which is complete crap, especially when you consider how contained it was when the National Guard got there. The last time the governor requested for the National Guard to come to Los Angeles was the Rodney King riot in 1992, like where people were literally dying, like buildings were literally actually being set on fire. There was a full-blown racialized uprising in the city. Like legitimate riots happened. This is not that at all, not even close. So to pretend that, you putting down some crazy uprising and not just a protest against your deportation regime is crazy. And I think, we talked about some of the optics with some of the protesters, like burning flags, which whatever. I don't personally care. I just don't think that engenders you to the general normie American public. But I guess some protesters don't give a shit. Don't care.
Don't care. Yeah.
And that's cool. Yeah. I don't think if you have a bunch of military people gun down American citizens on the streets on camera, that would look good for the Trump administration. I think there's a limit to this show of force here to where it becomes like you guys look exactly as deranged and out of pocket as can be. And I think and I've set it up here too. I think there's a certain lack of humility on the left about like, a lot of people like democratically elected this dude, and a lot of people who didn't vote for him want to see something done about the immigration issue and do want to see some deportations, much as I might hate that and it leaves a nasty taste in my mouth. At the same time, I think there's a bit of overestimation about the thirst and hunger that the American people have for deportation, to the point where you're like, all right, I get it. Stephen Miller's like, I get it. We don't have any criminals to deport. Let's go get some people. He literally told them to go to Home Depot. Literally.
Yeah, no, he did. I covered that yesterday.
And I think that's an overestimation of the wants and desires of the American citizenry to see something done about the immigration policy.
I totally agree with you. And it's so easy to lose people who are frustrated by, the instances of crime that they may have experienced or read about, carried out by someone who's undocumented. That's what drummed up support for deportations. Once you start targeting
kindergarten graduations,
like, dude, what? Come on, it's insane. It's like literally insane. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the raids that have happened that ICE has carried out across the country, because in recent weeks the administration has stepped up its targets from 660 to 3,000 arrests a day. ICE agents have been hitting many California farms that depend on migrant farm workers. They've also raided at least, like, this is the thing. These are people who are like, they're part of the fabric of our society, even though they're undocumented. Yes, I get it. They entered the country and they stayed here illegally. I get that. Okay, but what are your priorities? These are people who have been in the country for decades in some cases, don't know a life outside of the United States, have never done anything wrong other than work hard. And these are the people we're gonna target. These are the people I get that it takes a lot more investigative work and detective work to find the actual criminals, the people who Americans want deported. But maybe stop being lazy and focus on that. But they can't. They want to up their numbers because they're in this imaginary competition with previous administrations, namely the Obama administration, who was known as the deporter in chief. Now, they have been hitting up the farms, as I mentioned. They're also raiding They've raided at least 5 car washes across Los Angeles and Orange County since Sunday. But all of a sudden, Donald Trump appears to be kind of changing his tune now that his, business owner buddies are like, yo, hold on. Wait a minute. We need those farm workers. So get a load of what he posted on Truth Social this morning. It's incredible. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good longtime workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. Wow, who could have known that they would feel that way? In many cases, the criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open borders policy are applying for those jobs. This is not good. We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming.
Classic Trump talking out of both sides of his mouth there. And look, listen, I think it bears mentioning too, there's definitely a left critique of, a very lax immigration policy that says that if you leave our overlords to their own devices, they will literally import as many people from struggling countries to replace us with lower wage workers. Like they will just bring the outsourcing home. We see that in the white collar sector with the H-1B visas, where not to say these aren't talented people coming in, but they pay them less and they threaten to get them back the hell up out of America because their visa status is so precarious because they're so dependent on the job, which thereby drives down the wages of American workers. And you could see that in other sections of the economy too, where these capitalists would just be like, yo, we're just gonna import the cheap labor instead of exporting the jobs, right? And that's definitely a left critique of a very lax immigration policy. That being said, like there's nobody in their right mind who calls himself somebody of the left thinks that we should be deporting strawberry farmers from America. That's insane to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And according to the Agriculture Department, 42% of crop farm workers from 2020 to 2022 lacked legal status. So the agriculture industry is definitely hitting Trump up and they're like, yo, homie, what are you up to? We don't like this. And Trump did double down on the earlier message from Truth Social. Let's take a look at that video.
Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're gonna have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you go into a farm and you look and people they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed to throw them out. And you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So we're going to have an order on that.
I gotta say, it's not a good feeling when the president of the United States states things as if it's like, ooh, new information, scoop, exclusive, and it's something that you've known for like decades, literally. But US Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins did confirm today that Trump is looking at every available tool to address farm workers amid this surge in immigration raids. And then back in LA, County Supervisor Catherine Barger, who's a Republican, condemned ICE for conducting raids in unmarked cars and without showing their badges, which adds a particularly creepy authoritarian element to all of this.
Secret police, that's what it is. There's just no two ways about it. The idea that these people wear masks because they're like, no, because then people, they put our faces on the internet and tell the world that we work for ICE. Like, all right, nobody told you to sign up for that job. Like, I have no sympathy for you on that. And like it's not like they just started like ICE used to do this one thing. You've been working there for 10 years. And now it's this other thing that you're being forced to do. It's like, nah, fam, you just started working there. And this has been what they've been doing the entire time. So I'm sorry, it's hard for me to have any sympathy there. But yeah, the idea that these guys in unmarked vehicles, masked, don't show any identification or badges, are grabbing, just snatching people out of the street. That's just straight up jackbooted secret police kind of stuff. It's just the ugliest and scariest, most authoritarian of all of it. And like this is kind of the most predictable part of the deportation regime. And again, I want to keep everybody in mind that a lot of this stuff, the point of it is the spectacle.
Yeah.
They know
Why
that.
do you think they were doing these raids in broad daylight, in Home Depot parking lots, in churches?
Yeah.
Like they wanted the spectacle. And when you
Yes.
do the spectacle, you're gonna get a reaction.
They know net deportations are down. They know like they have no leg to stand on that. They know they can't actually deliver on the tens of millions that they're gonna get out of the country. It's just not possible or feasible to do. And most importantly, they know they don't have all of these boogeymen that they promised. If they did, I promise you, it would lead Fox News every single night. All of these protests that are happening and the clashes with the police, what would precede that footage would be all of the quote unquote criminals that they found in the past. This guy did this guy did that rape, that murder, this fentanyl drug sale that led to this many overdoses. This thing would be running on a loop on Fox, and it'd be like, look at those crazy Democrats protesting what we're doing to make our country safe. They're not doing that because these people don't exist. Yeah. Literally, the policy would be to just deport barbers and day laborers.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.